Voina is a Russian group that engages in radical protest street art actions, and it was founded in 2005 by Oleg Vorotnikov and Natalia Sokol. Oleg is an ideologist of the group, and Natalia is a coordinator and commander-in-chief at Actions. In 2006, Alexei Sarna joined the group as a media artist and author of all group's texts and concepts. And in 2009, Leonid Nikolaev became a part of a group. He is better known as Crazy Lenya, and he is one of the bravest activists I know. There are more than 20 criminal cases brought against the group by the Russian police. Activists experienced dozens of assaults and searches and batteries by Russian cops. Oleg Vorotnikov and Leonid Nikolaev were arrested in 2010. And they spent 3.5 months in Russian jail after the Action Palace Revolution, which I'm going to show you in a bit. The main character of this action is a little child who is playing with a ball, and this ball rolls under a police car. And this ball symbolizes the universe, the world. And in order to free the world, we have to turn over this police system and, in this case, the police car, which symbolizes this system that oppresses people all over the world, not only in Russia. In all, there were 7 cars, police cars, that were turned over. 6 were part of a rehearsal, and 1 was turned over opposite the entrance to the Russian Museum. It was right in the center of St. Petersburg. Oleg and Leonid were afterwards arrested, and they were released only because a British artist, Banksy, bailed them out. He collected money by selling his Choose Your Weapon prints, and this money is spent now to help other political prisoners in Russia and other countries. I can tell you about how this arrest happened after the action. The police broke into apartment early in the morning at 7 o'clock, and they beat up all the activists there, including Natalia, and they handcuffed Oleg and Leonid, and they threw them on an iron floor of a police car, and they took them from Moscow to St. Petersburg, where this so-called crime was committed. During this trip, Russian cops, as usual, they drank vodka, and for their own pleasure, they kicked our activists. They also put plastic bags on their heads, so they entertained themselves as much as they could, and afterwards, both Oleg and Leonid were held in separate cells. And as you know, Russian prison is there are no human rights or freedoms in there. There is no food there, and in order to feed them, we had to send them food parcels, because what they give in Russian prison is very close to poison, and a person can just die if he eats this food. When they were released, when they were bailed from the custody, they refused to appear for further interrogations, and in 2011 they were put on the international wanted list, and now they are known criminals who have been searched all over the world in order to bring them back to Russia, to the prison. The second action I'm going to show you is called Dick, captured by KGB. 9 Voina activists created a huge graffiti in the center of St. Petersburg on a drawbridge just a few minutes before it started rising. It took them only 23 seconds to paint a huge dick that erected just opposite the headquarters of the Federal Security Service, which is former KGB. And it was by this action, this action has a humorous element in it, and I think it was the biggest graffiti that ever happened. Because it was 65 meter long and 27 meters wide, and the bridge weighed around 3,000 tons, and this huge kinetic object could be seen from far away, and there were tourist buses that approached, and people were taking pictures with this huge dick, which we intended, which we created especially for the security service that oppresses human rights.
Молочко свежее. Это по 15. Ага. Для вас что, светофора не существует, что ли? Люди у нас.
А каждый день, да?
Да ну куда знали, краска наверное. Я
Каждый день так, да?
вот спроси у них, там одного поймали, зайди спроси. Нахуй они это делают, следите за выражением. Да нет, это, наверное, только в День России.
One ball turned out to be smaller because one of the activists was attacked by the police, so he wasn't able to finish it. And this small line on top of this dig, Natalia Sokol was painting it, and she had Casper on her back. And the funny thing is that the a cop who he was running towards her to stop her, but when he saw that she is a girl and she has a baby on her back, she stopped, froze, turned around and ran in other direction. So it's nice to have a girl at And Leonid Nikolaev was arrested and beaten up, but afterwards he was released because when he was brought to the police station, and cops told each other in what he was involved in, they were laughing out loud, and they just couldn't. They didn't treat him seriously, so he was released. The next action is called Crazy Lenya on top of feds. Leonid imitated a car crash in the center of Moscow. There are police cars and authorities cars in Moscow. They have blue signals, and they usually don't obey any rules. And when they drive, they don't pay attention to people who are crossing the streets, who cross the streets, and very often pedestrians are killed in those car accidents, and those people, the drivers of those cars, are never punished. It's a big problem, not only in Moscow but in Russia in general. And we tried to show how it feels like to this guy in this Federal Security Service car. Actually, Lenya had 3 buckets on his head. The third one was very small. It looked like a little hat. He was next day. He was kidnapped by people without any uniforms, but I'm certain they were cops, and they put a bag on his head, and he couldn't see where they took him. And when he asked them, where are you taking me? And they told him that we are taking you to the forest. This is your last day. Well, eventually they brought him to the police station. But anyways, those kinds of jokes are common in Russia. Now I'm going to tell you about the section Political Prisoners and Voina Wanted. This is a part of the action Political Prisoners. Alexei Sarnos initiated it in 2011 when Oleg Vorotnikov was put on the international wanted list. And this action had an ironic element in it because Alexei intended to help those Russian cops, those stupid Russian cops, to find Oleg abroad. Cops confiscated all the documents from Oleg when he was arrested, and he couldn't leave the country even if he wanted because he didn't have any IDs. But anyway, they put them on this international wanted list, and Alexei traveled from one country country to another and displayed this banner in various significant places. On this picture, you can see Taisia Osipova. She is a political activist and she was sentenced to 8 years in prison. She is a wife of the opposition leader in Russia, and the cops planted drugs on her, and she ended up in jail. She has a very severe disease, and she's been tortured there. She doesn't get any medicine and any proper food. And we hope that she will survive this sentence. Those are the names of political prisoners, and there are thousands of them in Russia. It's just mass media do not write about them, and nobody knows about them, but they do exist. We try to help them in any ways we can. For example, the money that Banksy gave us, we spent for food parcels and for lawyers to support them. Voina, in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, got the Innovation Prize for the dick captured by KGB action. It's I don't know how could it happen, but it did. And these $8,000 we also transferred to the human rights organization that helps political prisoners. By this action, we aim to not only help political prisoners, but to draw attention to this problem in Russia, draw attention not only people, but mass media, and we are trying to make them write about them. And also, by this action, we test the level of human rights and freedoms in various countries, how those rights are observed there. For example, in Barcelona, when we held this action, we were followed by the local police everywhere. And this is Boris Hopek, a German artist who is based in Barcelona. He helped us, and we were driving around the city in his car. And when we installed it, put it up in front of Sagrada Familia, afterwards we put the banner into his car, and we went for a walk. And when we came back in 5 minutes, there were cops near this car, and they broke into this car, and they just confiscated the banner. And when we asked them to give it back because it was our property, and they didn't have any warrant or anything, they just didn't want to listen, and they took it. So you can imagine how it is for activists in Barcelona. And also local anarchists have a squad there. When we stayed at this squad, police tried to break into it, but they have very good lockers, so they didn't manage, but they tried. It's the Berlin Wall. This is in Bucharest when we tried to put this banner on the National Museum there. There were several agents without uniform who appeared out of nowhere, and one of them said, "I salute you respectfully, and what are you doing here? We could shoot you, you don't have any permission," and so on and so forth. And his final words, that Romania and Russia is not a big difference. Free artists can't do anything in the streets of Bucharest. And this is the banner in front of the House of Parliament. When we tried to put this banner in the Revolution Square, before we even started unfolding the banner, we were arrested and we were taken to the immigration service, and they tried to deport us. It was a surprise, and the SCOP who dealt with us said that we came on our own will to the police station, and that we wanted to go to be deported on our own will. So he was trying to get rid of us as fast as he could. It's in Fukushima, in this small town that was destroyed by tsunami in Japan, and we installed the banner in this nuclear waste. This is in Hamburg. This is in London. As Ben already told you that in Tower you cannot unfold banner as well. So we have to think. It makes us think whether we have freedoms here, whether they are still left here. This is in Prague. When we unfolded it here, a worker of this museum came with a huge knife, and he was running towards us with a huge knife, and it was quite scary. And he cut off the rope which was holding this banner. And when we took pictures of him, he started doing movements like this with his knife, and he demanded to delete all those pictures. But when he saw the TV crew, he ran away very quickly with his knife. This image was installed on the embankment wall in Prague. The mayor of Prague decided to support this action. He asked. He decided to install those images in the local subway. So it was pretty fantastic when you go down and you see Oleg Vorotnikov's face all over the subway. In Austria, we put up this banner on a billboard on the facade of the Kunsthalle, and the security was outraged. They were trying to take it off, but they couldn't because it's very high, and they were jumping. I wanted to show the action Cock in the Ass punk concert in a courtroom, which Pussy Riot used this idea of their action. They took it from Voina, and I wanted to ask this, or to show this connection.
Провокаторы до мозга костей. Позор. Как земля вас носит.
Заранее предупреждаю, если кто-то заберет, сфотографирует кого-либо, я не знаю, из процесса, участников процесса, во время процесса, будем отбирать фотоаппараты.
И штрафовать.
И штрафовать кому-то. У вас есть заявка на консультацию?
Я обвиняю.
Начинай.
Я предупреждаю, что за нарушение порядка...
Уважаемые журналисты, а сейчас состоится выступление партии
С новой программой «Нет легавых ёбаных начальников», а также съемки клипа на песню «Все менты ублюдки». Автопати,
Уважаемый господин, я не знаю, простите, как...
Позорьте здание суда, пожалуйста.
Выйдите, пожалуйста. Выйдите отсюда.
Раз, два, 3, 4.
Светлана Юрьевна, ну я за денежками потом тогда заскачиваю, хорошо?
Пойдем, пойдем.
Зачем? Что делаете? Да вы тащите меня! Я фэповская мразь! Я еще раз повторяю! Только не Кивсюкову, хорошо? Пожалуйста, у него большой пистолет. Светлана Юрьевна, ну скажите ему, ну что это такое в конце концов? Светлана Юрьевна! Светлана Юрьевна!
Pussy Riot activists from Pussy Riot participated in this action, and they decided to use this idea in their own actions. As far as you must probably know that they ended up in jail, and it just shows that artist in Russia is a real enemy of the state, a real enemy of the authorities, and they are dealing with artists as if they were criminals. Freedom to all political prisoners.